Well, it's not just eventing getting itself in a twist like we saw at the weekend over Barbary horse trials. It now turns out that racing is in a similar fix over the forthcoming Cheltenham Festival. Let's listen to ITV racing correspondent Matt Chapman this morning on Radio Glos.
So in 2 weeks' time, we will be well in full Cheltenham Festival mode with tens of thousands of people heading to the racecourse every day. However, much of the talk in the sport at the moment is not so much about Cheltenham, it's still about changes to the use of the whip. Since last month, jockeys have been restricted on how many times they can use the whip in a race, but many have fallen foul of the new rules, with some even being suspended, meaning that they will miss this year's Cheltenham Festival. One of the most vocal against the change in the rules is Matt Chapman, who will be at Prestbury Park every day during the festival as part of the ITV racing team, and he joins us on the programme this morning. Good morning, Matt.
Morning, Steve. Great show so far.
Great, thank you very much for joining us on the programme this morning. Just for people who perhaps get excited in this part of the world at this time of the year and don't follow the sport all year round, just explain what's changed, Matt.
Well, yeah, firstly, you're absolutely right. The Cheltenham Festival, 4 days of magnificent sport with some of the great sportsmen and women as far as the jockeys are concerned, the world's great racing jumps trainers as far as the trainers are concerned, and owners who are loving their horses. So it's a fantastic 4 days to look forward to. The creme de la creme all come together at Cheltenham Racecourse. But we are amidst a furore at the moment, and the irony of that, of course, is that any whip changes that come in are meant to placate people. But as it happens, there wasn't a big furore, and what we've created in a move of self-destruction for me is a big furore, and now everyone is talking about the whip while no one was a few weeks ago. So it's a very strange situation, Steve. The main issue is this. First of all, when you come on shows like this or any broadcast and you're advertising jockeys being able to use a whip on a horse, of course there will be many of your audience straight away saying, well, that fella's ridiculous. How can he say that it's okay to be whipping horses? But that comes from a lack of education put out by the British Horse Racing Authority for those people who actually want to be educated. And we have to understand that not everyone wants to know about football, not everyone wants to know about rugby, and not everyone wants to know about horse racing. And in the modern world, there are lots of people who want to latch onto something that they can slag off on social media without actually really knowing anything about it. We know that's the world we live in. Horse welfare is paramount to every single person who works in horse racing and who loves horse racing. We love the horses more than anyone who just dips into the sport and watches it from time to time. So the idea that we don't care is a ridiculous one straight away. But there is fairly solid scientific evidence, without in any way there being 100% scientific evidence, that the new padded foam whip does not hurt a horse. It's mostly about the sound, it's mostly about the movement, and restricting jockeys from allowing their horse to run as fast as it can, which is basically what this is about and what the whole sport is about, is quite ludicrous. And Steve, the main issue here is that we don't really know who we're placating. Like, who are the people that we are worried about? The British Horse Racing Authority will tell you that there's a whole movement out there trying to get rid of the game. But there's no real evidence of this. It all came into being in 2011 on the back of the Grand National, where 9 complained about the use of the whip on Ballabriggs out of an audience that watched the race between 8 and 10 million. And when the whole country effectively was asked to complain about horse racing, like the British Horse Racing Authority said, look, if it's a problem for you, we want you to come to us. Only 500 people out of the whole country even bothered to respond. So that's the basic gist of it, Steve.
Yeah, they are saying that there are not enough new young faces coming into race courses, and they're saying that they think the whip could have a part to play in that, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, look, there is no doubt there will be an audience of youngsters who, the thing is, Steve, actually, I'll rephrase that. It's the way you ask a question, isn't it? Like, if you ask someone, do you like horse racing? Most people would just say yes or no. If you ask someone, do you like the fact that a whip is used on a horse in a horse race? Probably 100% of people would say, well, that sounds cruel. It's just, if you don't educate people about the sport and about how the horses are looked after and cared for, then there is an issue. And I think personally, and it's just my opinion, but I think the British Horse Racing Authority have been absolutely dismal in promoting education in the sport. And if they'd actually done that properly, which they should be doing, then we wouldn't be in this situation. And also, Steve, you know, there are a group of people who don't want just the whip taken away. They want horse racing stopped, full stop. And just
I'm sure there are people listening this morning in that bracket. I mean, it happens every year during Cheltenham. We get people who are saying, you know, yeah, we don't like the sport. We don't think the sport should exist. I mean, as somebody who's I'm born and bred in Cheltenham, you know, at this time of year, any time a month leading up to, you know, driving to London, if that's the case, you see the billboards in London with Cheltenham. I feel a bit of pride, you know, but people even coming into airports and seeing that the Cheltenham Festival being advertised. But yeah, this year they're seeing images with the whip removed from the jockey's hand. It's actually been photoshopped out, which I know is something else, which, should we say, has caused a bit of comment.
Yeah, whoever decided that, and we're not absolutely sure, but it will have either been the BHA or Jockey Club Racecourses that own Cheltenham. It was a catastrophic mistake, because the thing that upsets me most about all this, and it does genuinely upset me, because literally the people complaining are just not interested in the sport. They're not educated about the sport. The catastrophic mistake there is that it suggests that we don't have faith in it either. And once you're running a sport and it looks like your leaders don't have faith in it, you're in a real mess. I mean, that was a huge error, and we should be very much justified by our sport. And one thing I would like to say, which is, I think, a message that the BHA and anyone in horse racing should always put out on any show, is this. There are people, I think, who believe that all these racehorses would be having a lovely time in a field doing nothing all day. Now, firstly, horses get just as injured in a field on their own in the wild as they do in a racing stable. Secondly, if they do get injured in the wild, there's no one there to save them or help them. And thirdly, and the most important point of all for everyone in this matter, is not a single one of these horses would have ever existed or ever had a life without horse racing. They are bred to do what they're doing. And so the people who want horse racing banned or they want it restricted are basically, what they're saying is, we want this species made extinct, because that is what they're requesting.
The Jockey Club have told us, we recognise there are diverse views on the whip and have a wide range of images and content that are used to attract all sports fans. We're proud of our sport and the iconic moments it creates for fans of all walks of life, and remain deeply committed that racing is a sport for all. We are, as I said, under 2 weeks away now from the showcase event here in Gloucestershire. What have they got to do between now and then, Matt, do you think, to put us, you know, get people together?
Well, firstly, you know, some of that is claptrap, what that statement said. Some of it is factual, that racing is a sport for all. We want everyone to enjoy it. But the simple fact is, if you don't enjoy it, the chances are you're not going to join in. Not everyone. It feels like our authorities want everyone to enjoy the sport, but not everyone does enjoy everything. We all have different likes and tastes and stuff like that. There's lots about a day at the races, which is fantastic. It's a way of meeting friends, bringing people together. Some people don't even watch the racing. They just sit in the bar all afternoon. But there are lots of things you can do. At Cheltenham, you could go shopping all day at Cheltenham if you wanted to. There's a whole shopping village. There's also an incredible atmosphere and an incredible love for the horse and appreciation of a magnificent sport. And there's nothing for me more beautiful than a horse in fluent action, responding to its jockey and loving to do what it was bred to do. Your point you make is a good one. I don't think there's anything they can do between now and Cheltenham. For the jockeys that are over here, they're just going to have to do as best they can. For the jockeys coming from Ireland, I think it's going to be incredibly hard because they've had no practice of the new rules at all. I can only say that it's cretinous that these new rules for the Irish have been brought in, and the first time they're going to use them is at the Cheltenham Festival. I mean, talk about trying to kick yourself in the foot. But you know, all we can do is hope that it goes well. And one final thing on this, Steve, I have no sympathy for any jockey, incidentally, who breaks the numbers rule. The numbers for jumps jockeys are down to seven uses of the stick. 2 have already been disqualified since these rules have come in, which means the jockeys used 11 strikes or more. I have no sympathy for that because the difference between 7 and 11 is a pretty big one. It's nearly half again. So anyone who's thinking, oh, he just wants them to whip away. No, I don't. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that we're chipping away as if we're chipping away at a bit of wood. Okay. And when you finally do that final chip, Steve, there's nothing left other than to take the whip away. And then I promise you all hell will break loose.
Thank you ever so much for joining us, Matt. Nice to talk to you. We'll see you at Prestbury Park in under 2 weeks' time. Now, Matt Chapman, who is part of the ITV racing team, taking on the bookies and at the moment taking on the British Horse Racing Authority and the Jockey Club. Brant Dunshee, the British Horse Racing Authority's Chief Regulatory Officer, says that jockeys have had more than 4 weeks to adapt to the new rules through the bedding-in period. As the jockeys themselves have stated, it's now up to them to ensure that they ride within the new rules.